It's a quiet Saturday at this apartment on Goforth Street on Houston's South Side, but just a week earlier on the afternoon of April 26th, Houston police say it was a bloody murder scene. HPD finding a 23-year-old woman in one of the units lying on the kitchen floor with multiple stab wounds. Homicide detectives identifying her as Elizabeth Tamilore Odunsi. Police say she was from England but was in nursing school here in Houston, set to graduate this weekend.
Yes, and grad in 2 weeks. Summer is 14 days away. The young woman dances joyfully in her TikTok video, her smile radiating the pride of someone on the cusp of achieving their dreams. This was Elizabeth Tamilore Odunsi, known to her 52,000 followers as Tami, posting what would become her final message to the world. 5 days later, Houston police officers would discover her body on the kitchen floor of her apartment, stabbed 28 times, her blood pooling beneath dreams that would never be realized. The brutal murder of this 23-year-old British-Nigerian nursing student just days before her graduation reveals a horrifying truth. The person who took her life was someone she should have been able to trust, her roommate. This case isn't just about one tragic death. It exposes dangerous gaps in how we protect international students who travel thousands of miles from home to pursue education in America. Tami's story highlights the vulnerability of young people navigating unfamiliar systems without nearby family or lifelong friends to notice when something's wrong. For the thousands of students who cross oceans each year to study abroad, housing arrangements are often made through third-party services with minimal oversight. These students trust that basic safety measures are in place. Tami's case proves they aren't. Before we continue this tragic story, I need to ask you something important. Tami's voice was silenced forever, but together we can ensure her story isn't forgotten. If you believe that sharing these stories helps protect others from similar fates, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring attention to cases like Tami's and potentially save lives. Now, let's uncover what really happened to this promising young nurse whose American dream turned into a nightmare. Born in Newham, London, to Nigerian parents, Tami embodied the immigrant dream, hardworking, determined, and driven by family values. Her childhood in East London shaped her worldview, instilling both British sensibilities and the strong cultural pride of her Nigerian heritage. At just 17 years old, she made the brave decision to move alone to Houston, Texas, to pursue nursing at Texas Woman's University. This wasn't just a change of schools, but a complete transformation of her life. New country, new culture, new educational system, all without the immediate support of family. "Everything I do is for my parents," she once shared on TikTok. "I want to give them a better life." This sentiment echoed through her content as a Tamidollar's, where she posted study tips, nursing school struggles, and celebrations of small victories. Her authenticity resonated with followers who watched her journey from nervous international student to confident, almost graduate. Her sister Georgina described Tami as having a vibrant personality, someone who lit up rooms with her presence. University officials noted her remarkable resilience, having adapted to a new country just months before COVID-19 lockdowns began. While many international students returned home during the pandemic, Tami stayed in Texas, determined to complete her education despite the isolation. Tami's passion for pediatric nursing stemmed from a deep love for helping children. In one poignant TikTok post she shared, "She doesn't know it yet, but a year from now, all her hard work will pay off. She'll be working as a nurse in her dream specialty." She added that she hoped to have a stronger relationship with Christ, living a quiet and peaceful life. Her academic journey wasn't easy. Nursing school is notoriously demanding, and Tami documented late-night study sessions, clinical rotations, and exam stress, but she persevered, earning the respect of professors and classmates alike. By spring 2025, she stood on the threshold of achievement, just days away from becoming the first in her family to earn a Bachelor of Science in nursing. The cruel irony is that as Tami prepared for her graduation ceremony, her cap and gown already purchased and showcased proudly online, Someone sharing her living space was harboring violent intentions that would forever extinguish her bright future. Tami's experience in America was a testament to her adaptability and determination. Moving to Texas at 17 meant navigating cultural differences that went beyond accents and food preferences. She had to learn an entirely new healthcare education system while adjusting to American campus life. On TikTok, she often compared British and American lifestyles. "The vibes are just so much better here," she told her followers in one video, explaining her preference for American culture. She embraced Texas traditions while maintaining her British-Nigerian identity, creating a unique perspective that attracted viewers to her content. When COVID-19 hit in early 2020, Tami had only been in the country for months. While many international students rushed home, border closures, and her determination to stay on track with her nursing program kept her in Houston. This period of isolation proved especially challenging. Stuck in student housing during lockdowns, thousands of miles from family during a global crisis, yet she persevered, using social media to maintain connections both with loved ones back home and her growing online community. Her TikTok followers watched as she adapted to virtual learning, celebrated small victories, and pushed through the unique challenges of nursing education during a pandemic. By 2025, Tami had built a life in Houston. She had friends, professional connections through clinical rotations, and plans to begin her nursing career in America. Her academic achievements at Texas Woman's University positioned her well for the pediatric specialty she dreamed of pursuing. Are you an international student or have you studied abroad? If so, what challenges did you face adapting to a new country? Share your experiences in the comments. Your insights might help others currently navigating similar journeys. 2 months before her death, Tami found herself needing new accommodation. Like many students, she turned to a housing placement service for a place to live, which randomly pairs tenants without compatibility assessments. Their policy explicitly states, "We don't use any criteria to match roommate compatibility." This fateful decision brought 40-year-old Chester Lamar Grant into Tami's life. Grant, a Fordham University student, appeared on paper to be just another tenant seeking affordable housing. The 17-year age gap between them might have raised eyebrows, but the housing service made no effort to consider age, lifestyle, or background when creating this pairing. What the system failed to flag was Grant's extensive history of domestic violence arrests in Washington state. The apartment on Goforth Street became home to both a graduating nursing student with a bright future and a man with a documented pattern of violence against others. For international students like Tami, housing options are often limited by budget constraints, lack of local rental history, and unfamiliarity with neighborhoods. Many rely completely on third-party services to make safe housing arrangements. These companies hold tremendous responsibility, yet often prioritize filling vacancies over tenant safety. Within weeks of moving in together, tensions emerged. Neighbors would later report that Tami and Grant had been arguing over their shared apartment's cats. These disputes escalated over time, with some residents reporting concerns to police, but in a system designed without safety nets, these warning signs went unaddressed. The housing company for a place to live conducted background checks through Safe Rent Solutions, but these checks apparently failed to identify Grant's criminal history across state lines. This critical oversight placed Tami in daily proximity to someone with a history of violence, a situation that would prove deadly. Have you ever found yourself in a dangerous living situation with someone you barely knew? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize danger before it's too late. April 26, 2025 began as an ordinary Saturday. For Tami, it should have been a time of celebration and anticipation. Just 2 weeks remained until her nursing school graduation. Instead, it would become the day her life ended. At 3:50 p.m., Houston police officers arrived at the apartment on Goforth Street for a routine welfare check. A concerned neighbor or passerby had spotted something alarming, blood on the rear patio, and called authorities. When officers knocked on the door, they received no answer. The blood on the concrete patio prompted them to enter the apartment. What they discovered inside would shock even experienced officers. Tami lay on the kitchen floor, her body bearing the evidence of a frenzied attack, 28 stab wounds. The violence of the assault suggested not just murder but rage. The kitchen, which should have been a place of nourishment and daily routine, had become the site of a brutal killing. In another room, officers found Chester Lamar Grant with wounds to his neck and torso. Unlike Tami, he was still alive, though in critical condition. The contrast was stark, the victim dead on the kitchen floor while her alleged attacker remained alive in a separate room. Court records would later reveal that Grant had stabbed himself 6 times after attacking Tami, including a self-inflicted neck wound, perhaps in an attempt to stage a mutual conflict or end his own life. This detail suggests premeditation rather than a spontaneous act of violence. Paramedics pronounced Tami dead at the scene. Grant was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, where he would remain under police guard for nearly a week. On May 2nd, he was discharged directly into police custody and charged with murder. The timing of this tragedy adds another layer of heartbreak. Tami's final TikTok, posted just 5 days earlier on April 21st, showed her joyfully dancing with text announcing her upcoming graduation and summer plans. She had already purchased her cap and gown, ready to mark her achievement. Instead, her sister would later accept her nursing pin posthumously. I need to pause here because this is important. Tami's story isn't just another crime statistic. It represents a systemic failure that continues to put vulnerable students at risk. If you believe these stories deserve more attention, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your simple action helps ensure Tami didn't die in vain and could protect someone else from a similar fate. Now, let's examine the red flags that everyone missed. Following the discovery of Tami's body, Houston police launched a full investigation. The crime scene told a clear but disturbing story. The kitchen floor covered in blood, multiple knife wounds on Tami's body, and Grant found wounded but alive in another room. Forensic teams documented the scene meticulously, collecting blood evidence, fingerprints, and the weapon used in the attack. The physical evidence painted a picture of a one-sided assault rather than a mutual fight. The 28 stab wounds inflicted on Tami contrasted sharply with Grant's 6 self-inflicted wounds. While Grant received medical treatment at a local hospital, detectives began piecing together the events leading to the murder. They interviewed neighbors who confirmed ongoing disputes between the roommates, particularly regarding cats in the apartment. Several residents reported hearing arguments in the days before the murder, but none anticipated the violence that would follow. Police also examined both Tami's and Grant's digital footprints. Tami's social media showed a young woman excited about her future, while investigations into Grant's background revealed his troubling history that had somehow slipped through the housing company's screening process. As Grant recovered in the hospital under police guard, investigators built their case. The evidence suggested that after stabbing Tami repeatedly, Grant had turned the knife on himself, perhaps in an attempt to create a self-defense narrative, or to end his own life after realizing the consequences of his actions. By May 2nd, doctors determined Grant was stable enough for discharge. Police immediately took him into custody, formally charging him with murder. His first court appearance followed, where a judge set bail at $500,000, 0 cents, an amount reflecting the severity of the crime and potential flight risk. The case quickly gained media attention, particularly in the UK, where Tami's family learned of her death through a devastating phone call. British news outlets covered the story of the nursing student killed abroad, while American media focused on the housing system failures that had placed a violent offender with an unsuspecting international student. As the investigation continued, one question remained central. How could someone with Grant's violent history have been approved to share living space with a young female student from another country? The answer would reveal critical gaps in systems meant to protect vulnerable individuals. The most devastating aspect of Tami's murder is how preventable it might have been. Chester Lamar Grant wasn't a first-time offender or someone without documented violent tendencies. His criminal record revealed a disturbing pattern spanning years. In 2018, he was convicted of domestic violence in Washington state, his first documented violent offense. In 2020, he violated a protective order and was convicted again, demonstrating a pattern of disregarding legal boundaries meant to protect others. In 2023, he faced another domestic violence charge, a case that was still pending, when he was approved as Tami's roommate. This wasn't a case of a single mistake or isolated incident. Grant had established a clear pattern of violence specifically directed at people with whom he had close relationships. Precisely the situation created when he was paired with Tami as a roommate. Despite this history, For a Place to Live approved Grant's rental application after a background check conducted by SafeRent Solutions. The failure points were numerous: inadequate cross-state criminal database reviews, no psychological assessments for high-risk applicants, and a business model that prioritized filling vacancies over tenant safety. The company's own policy statement reveals a troubling approach to roommate matching. We don't use any criteria to match roommate compatibility. This hands-off approach meant that basic safety considerations, like avoiding pairing young female students with older men who have violent histories, weren't part of their process. For international students like Tami, these oversights are particularly dangerous. Far from home and support networks, they often lack the local knowledge to identify warning signs or navigate housing safety concerns. They trust that American housing systems include basic protections against known violent offenders. The neighbors who reported hearing arguments between Tami and Grant represent another missed opportunity for intervention. While they did the right thing by reporting concerns, the system lacked effective mechanisms to escalate these reports or connect them to Grant's history of domestic violence. What warning signs do you think were missed in Tami's case? Have you noticed similar gaps in housing safety where you live? Your insights could help others recognize dangerous situations before they escalate. News of Tami's murder devastated her family in London. Within days, they launched a GoFundMe campaign to repatriate her body to the United Kingdom, seeking £20,000, 0 pence. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. They raised over £72,000, 0 pence, a testament to how many lives Tami had touched both in person and through her social media presence. Tami was a beautiful soul, full of light, ambition, and kindness, her sister Georgina wrote on the fundraising page. She moved from the UK to the United States to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse, dedicating herself to a life of care and service. British media covered the story extensively, highlighting the tragedy of a young woman killed abroad while pursuing her education. In Houston, local news focused on the housing system failures that had placed a violent offender with an unsuspecting student. Texas Woman's University held a memorial service where students and faculty gathered to honor Tami's memory. Professors spoke of her dedication to nursing and her positive influence on classmates. Fellow nursing students shared stories of her encouragement during difficult courses and clinical rotations. In a heart-wrenching moment that should have been Tami's triumph, Georgina instead traveled to Texas to accept her sister's nursing pin posthumously at the graduation ceremony. Standing before Tami's classmates, she simply said, "We love you, Tami." The auditorium fell silent before erupting in applause, honoring both the graduate they had lost and the sister who stood in her place. Texas Woman's University announced a scholarship in Tami's name for aspiring pediatric nurses, ensuring her dream of helping children would continue through others. The first recipient would be selected the following academic year, with preference given to international students pursuing pediatric nursing. Tami's TikTok account became a digital memorial, with followers leaving thousands of comments expressing grief and sharing how her content had inspired them. Her final video, the joyful dance celebrating her upcoming graduation, accumulated millions of views as her story spread. Meanwhile, Chester Lamar Grant remains jailed on $500,000 0 bond awaiting trial. If convicted, he faces up to life in prison, but no punishment can restore what was taken from Tami and those who loved her. Tami's case exposes critical gaps in systems meant to protect vulnerable students. First, housing providers must implement comprehensive background checks that cross state lines and flag violent histories. The current patchwork approach leaves dangerous blind spots that cost lives. Grant's Washington state convictions should have been visible to Texas housing providers, but the fragmented nature of criminal databases allowed his history to go unnoticed. Second, compatibility-based roommate matching should be standard practice. Algorithms considering lifestyle habits, pet ownership, and sleep schedules could prevent volatile pairings. More importantly, safety-based screening should automatically prevent pairing young women with men who have histories of violence against women. Universities should offer vetting services for off-campus housing partners or create their own safe housing networks. Third, international students need stronger support networks. Universities should provide 24/7 crisis hotlines, mandatory check-ins, and cultural orientation that includes safety education specific to their new environment. Tami's isolation as a young expatriate left her particularly vulnerable. She lacked the local knowledge and nearby family support that might have helped her recognize danger signs or find safe alternative housing quickly. Fourth, housing companies need accountability. For a place to live faced no consequences for their negligent pairing, despite their policy explicitly stating they don't consider compatibility. Regulatory oversight of student housing providers could establish minimum safety standards and penalties for companies that fail to protect tenants. Fifth, community vigilance is essential. While neighbors reported prior disputes between Tami and Grant, these warnings didn't trigger meaningful intervention. Anonymous conflict reporting platforms in shared housing could enable earlier action before violence erupts. Property managers should be required to document and investigate reports of conflict, especially in housing with international students. Finally, universities must recognize their moral responsibility extends beyond campus boundaries. While Tami lived off campus, her status as an international student recruited by the university created an obligation to ensure her safety. Institutions that benefit from international student enrollment should provide comprehensive support throughout their educational journey. What safety measures exist for students in your country? Are international students provided with adequate support where you're watching from? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could highlight solutions we haven't considered. In the wake of Tami's murders, several organizations began pushing for concrete changes to prevent similar tragedies. Housing advocates in Texas launched a campaign called Safe Housing Now, specifically targeting companies that pair strangers as roommates without adequate screening. The International Student Safety Coalition, formed by representatives from universities across the United States, began developing comprehensive guidelines for housing providers who serve foreign students. Their recommendations include mandatory cross-state background checks, prohibition of pairing female international students with males who have any history of violence, and regular welfare checks for newly arrived students. Texas Woman's University announced immediate policy changes, including a new requirement that all university-recommended housing providers must conduct enhanced background checks that include nationwide criminal database searches. They also established an international student housing office to help foreign students find safe accommodations and intervene if problems arise. Several state legislators in Texas introduced Tami's Law, which would require housing providers to disclose any violent criminal history of potential roommates before finalizing housing arrangements. The proposed legislation would also create a centralized database for reporting concerns about roommate behavior that could be accessed by housing providers and universities. Student groups at universities nationwide began organizing peer support networks specifically for international students, creating buddy systems to ensure no foreign student navigates housing challenges alone. These grassroots efforts aim to fill gaps in official support systems. Our Place to Live faced significant backlash following media coverage of their role in Tami's death. The company initially defended their practices, but eventually announced a complete overhaul of their screening procedures. Their new policy prohibits pairing individuals with violent histories with any roommates and requires in-person interviews before finalizing matches. Safe Rent Solutions, the background check company that failed to flag Grant's violent history, also faced scrutiny. Industry experts called for standardization of tenant screening practices and mandatory inclusion of nationwide criminal database searches for all housing applications. What safety policies do you think should be implemented to protect students in shared housing? Have you seen effective safety measures in your community that could be applied more broadly? Your suggestions could contribute to meaningful change. As we conclude Tami's story, we're left with the haunting images of her final TikTok, a young woman dancing, celebrating achievements that were just days from becoming reality. Her nursing cap and gown never worn at graduation, the pediatric patients who would never benefit from her care. But perhaps Tami's most important legacy isn't what she accomplished in life, but what her death can teach us about protecting vulnerable students. Every roommate pairing should be approached with safety as the priority. Every background check should be thorough. Every international student should have a support system that recognizes their unique vulnerabilities. Tami's TikTok bio read, "Nursing student, future RN, living my best life." She deserved to live that best life, to walk across the graduation stage, to care for children as a pediatric nurse, to give her parents the better life she dreamed of providing them. The scholarship in her name at Texas Woman's University will help other aspiring pediatric nurses achieve the dreams that were taken from her. Each year, a new student will carry forward her passion for helping children, creating a living legacy that extends beyond her 23 years. For her family in London, no justice can restore what was lost. Georgina's journey to Texas to accept her sister's nursing pin represents both the culmination of Tami's academic journey and the devastating reality that she wasn't there to receive it herself. As Chester Lamar Grant awaits trial, the legal system will determine his punishment, but the broader systems that failed Tami, housing providers, background check companies, university support services, must also be held accountable through meaningful reform. I want to end by asking you to do something meaningful in Tami's memory. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, perhaps a student planning to study abroad or a parent with a child living with roommates. Your simple action could save a life. And if you know someone in a potentially dangerous living situation, don't wait to speak up. The warning signs we ignore today could become tomorrow's tragedy. For Tami, and for all the students whose dreams deserve protection, let's commit to creating safer communities together. What action will you take after hearing Tami's story? Let us know in the comments below.